So last year I did $2.5 million in coaching sales, and today I'm gonna break down for you guys exactly how I did it. And just to be clear here, right off the bat, I'm not gonna leave anything out here. I'm not gonna tell you at the end you have to sign up for this coaching program to be able to learn the rest of the tricks and stuff. I'm literally just gonna break it down for you guys. For those of you that are interested in working with me more, you can work with me more. I have courses, I have stuff like that. I have coaching programs. But what I want to do is I've talked to a lot of coaches recently who are like, Jeremy, I'm working like crazy and we're not closing deals. And I want to help you guys because there's so many good programs out there. There's so many great coaches that can actually change people's lives. And a lot of what I did, doing $2.5 million in sales in a year is not that crazy. Doing $2.5 million in a year when your year ended in August and you worked part-time from January to August is. And so I want to give you guys kind of like the secret sauce here. And let me just start with something super important, you guys. You have to have an offer that converts. The biggest problem that I see with a lot of coaching programs is the coaches and the sales team get caught up focusing on the deliverables. Oh, you get eight weeks of calls and you get this thing and you get this thing. We're going to send you a little hat. People don't care about the deliverables at all. Most of the time I was selling last year, when I sold a $100,000 coaching package, it was usually one specific thing that I focused on, and it wasn't a deliverable. It was on solving a problem that they had that I had uncovered through the process. So today I'm going to walk you guys step by step through the exact questions I would ask, the way that I would position the middle of the call where you really have to kind of prove to people that they can trust you and that you can deliver. And I'm going to help you guys on the end of the call. One of the biggest problems with a lot of coaching companies especially is they don't ask for the sale enough times. If you Google or ChatGPT, how many times do you have to ask for a sale in order to get it? On average, it's 7 to 12 times. Most people give up after asking one time, if they ever ask at all. Almost nobody goes 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. So let's just start with the beginning of the call. And we're going to assume you have a great offer. If not, while we're talking through this process, you guys are going to see some things and hear some things that you're going to be like, oh, we should be doing that. That's why we're not closing these deals. So make sure you take really great notes. I promise you guys, if you actually implement what I'm sharing with you guys today, you will see an increase. You might even double how much you're doing in sales or more, even if you're not at the scale of the company that I was working with last year when I did this $2.5 million in sales. So number one, you have to have a great opening line. I'm going to give you guys the one that I used, but you can change it up a little bit. The key here is the opening line has to get the person on the other side of the conversation to just kind of blabber on and on and on and on. So when I would call a lead, I'd say, hey, this is Jeremy. You reached out about, this program. Can you just tell me a little bit about what you're looking for, and I'll see if I can help out? So that was my opening line. I would mute myself and I would just let them talk and talk and talk. Now, the key here is muting yourself. One of the biggest problems salespeople have, and this isn't something I've dealt with because I tend to be pretty introverted, but a lot of salespeople are extroverts. They want to talk so bad and they talk themselves right out of the sale. Zig Ziglar said, 50 years ago maybe, he said, you don't talk yourself into a sale, you listen yourself into a sale. So I would ask the opening question and I would just listen. Now, the interesting thing about this opening line is, if you guys notice, do I sound like a salesperson at all? Not really. Most salespeople, hey, this is Joe at XYZ company. I was giving you a call today because I saw that you might want to do this thing, blah, 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 blah. They sound like robots. Everybody sounds exactly the same. So when I would call, I'd kind of pause and a little bit. Be like, hey, can you just kind of tell me a little bit about what you're looking for, and I'll see if I can help. Now notice the end of it. The ending is super important. I didn't say, can you tell me what you're looking for so I can help you? I said, I'll see if I can help. So there's no pressure on them right from the get-go. It's like, if I can help, I will. If not, no problem. It's just real chill, laid back. A lot of people have the wrong idea about sales. They think you've got to sound like a salesperson, you have to be really sharp, and you got to be this. You just have to be real. In the world that we live in today, the problem is people are so sick and tired of just corporate trash, basically. Just people who are, box cutter people. They don't want that. They want someone who's just real, who's just a normal person like they are. And this functions on the psychological side. This disarms people. It makes them feel like, oh, I'm just having another conversation. Now, in my head, I know where I want to take them through this conversation. To me, this is very structured. But to them, it just feels like, hey, this guy saw I wanted to buy this product, or I was interested in it, and he called me and he asked me what I'm looking for, and I'll see if I can help out. That sounds great. And this happens in an instant, because when you ask a question, people tend to do what? They tend to want to answer it. And when you ask an open-ended question, which, if you want to think about this in terms of a visual, the sales process is like a sideways funnel. At the beginning of the call, all of those questions should be open-ended. So they should be like, can you tell me a little about what you're looking for? I'll see if I can help out. And they might say, oh yeah, we have this business, we do this thing, blah, blah, blah. And we were doing this, but we noticed we were having this problem and this thing happened. And my cousin this one time, they might get a little off track, by the way. Sometimes people will get off track. And you're just listening and taking notes to see, okay, where is this person mentally right now? They reached out because they have some kind of problem. They haven't been able to solve it. They said it took this much time. They've been working on it. Nothing's, moving, or it's moving slower than they want it to. So you start to piece together, okay, I know what the current situation is. And when I do these calls, I have a 10-point checklist that I go through before I ever start to really talk. Most of the first 10 minutes of the call, technically the first 12, is literally me asking open-ended questions and slowly getting into more, closed-ended questions. So the first bullet point on my 10-point list is, what is the current situation? Like, what's going on? What are they looking for? What do they need? And they might tell me a bunch of stuff. And I'll ask the next question. They'll say, hey, are you still there? Because I'm still muted, right? Well, yeah, I'm still here. What you were saying was interesting. Go ahead, I'm just listening, and then I mute myself again. Now, this is one of the key things I found that worked really well for me that I didn't see other salespeople doing. I would say that, and I'd encourage them to just keep talking. And then I'd mute myself again, and I'd let them sit in silence until they came up with something to say. Now, the interesting that you'll find is, if you try this on your calls, you'll notice that people start telling you stuff that is really helpful to actually closing the deal at the end of the call. And so my second question, still very open-ended. Oh, what you're saying was interesting. Go ahead, I'm still listening, just go ahead, keep talking. Mute. And I just sit and they talk for another couple of minutes. So in the first 5 minutes of the call, I've said 2 whole sentences, but they've spoken almost nonstop. And the thing is, because there's no defenses up, people aren't like, oh, this is a sales guy, I better be careful, he might get all my money. Because they're not being defensive, they're telling me almost everything I need to know to get an idea of what product I should be pitching them at the end of the call. And the trick is to mute. I could say this 10 times, mute yourself. I'm telling you guys, if you're not muting yourselves, you are talking yourself out of sales. And the craziest thing is, you almost always start talking right before they say something that is critical for you to know to be able to close a deal. And so they'll keep talking. And I'll say, well, what's the goal? Like, where are you guys trying to go in the next 12 to 18 months? Like, what's going to be different, like, if everything works out? And I mute myself again. And they tell me, oh yeah, we're doing $1 million in revenue, but we'd really like to double that. We want to get to $2 million in revenue within the next year. Okay, now I know where they're trying to go. And notice, it's a lot like a map. It's like, I got their point A, now I'm getting their point B. That's my second bullet point, by the way. Where do they want to go? What is the goal? The third bullet point comes up pretty quickly after that. The third bullet point is, well, what do you feel like is like the biggest problem? Like what's slowing you guys down or keeping you from potentially hitting that goal? And this is where most salespeople completely screw up. If you guys have been just kind of listening in the background while I'm talking, this is a point to really pay attention, because if you screw this up, it doesn't matter how good you are or how slick you are or what word tracks you know, you will not get the deal. When I ask the question, what's the biggest obstacle? What's the biggest problem? I mean, what's keeping you guys from getting there, or what's keeping you from getting there slower or faster, I mean, they're gonna say something that typically isn't the actual problem. They're almost always going to tell me the symptom of the problem. When you go to a doctor, you say, oh, I keep coughing, I've got this brown phlegm stuff. That is a symptom. That is not the problem. That is not the root cause. So it is crucial. I mean, if there was one thing I would want to hammer into your guys' heads other than muting yourself, it's don't mistake the symptom for the problem. You have to dig deeper. So they might say, oh, you know, our marketing is just not that good. And you say, okay, well, like, what's your marketing team look like? Like, what do you guys have going on as far as the team? And they might say, oh, I've got this, 18-year-old girl that she's interning with us and she posts for us. Now, if you look at a Fortune 500 company, are they letting some 18-year-old girl fresh out of high school post on their social media for them? Hell no. Companies like Coca-Cola are spending hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on their social media and online advertising. They're spending hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars on billboards and cross-promoting and partnerships and all this other stuff. So that's a major red flag right there. Okay, got this marketing girl. She doesn't know what the hell she's doing. They just hired her because she's young. Okay. So you got this girl who's taking care of you guys' paid ads. Oh, we don't have a paid media guy. Okay, here's another problem. So I'm making a list of all the problems. And then I say, well, like, how much do you guys spend on ads right now? Oh, we're not spending anything. That's a big problem, isn't it? You got a big company, you want to double your revenue, you're not spending anything on advertising. Microsoft spends billions of dollars a week advertising, and they're one of the biggest companies in the world. So if they're spending that much money trying to get in front of new users, even though everybody on the planet knows what Microsoft is, why wouldn't you be? So I'm stacking problems. A good way of thinking about this is selling is kind of like trying to balance a scale. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to push the scale all the way down with the longest list of problems you can make. So I'm looking at, you've got an incompetent person that's in charge of branding you on social media. You have nobody running your paid ads. You have no dollars going into paid ads. And then I might ask after that, I'd say, well, what have you guys tried that, worked, or you wish it had worked, it didn't work? Like, what have you guys tried so far in terms of like social media content, paid ads? Like, and I'll ask them, I'll say, what's your social media page? What's your Instagram page? Let me check it out for you. Now I'm pulling stuff up so I can look at it visually and have them look at it on their own phone while we're talking. So I can show them, not tell them. If you want to prove something to people, you don't tell them, you show them. Oh, wow, I see you guys got, 5 views on this one. You guys got 100 on this one. Man, that's not good. And I'll say that's not good, by the way, you guys. I'll say that's not good. And I won't say anything else until they agree with me. Why? Because I need them to acknowledge the problem. If somebody comes into the emergency room and they're missing a leg, and you're like, hey man, it's a big deal, you're missing a leg. They have to acknowledge it's a problem, even if they feel no pain. And by the way, a lot of companies have problems and they don't acknowledge the problem because they don't feel the pain, because they don't know. They have no idea. So when I'm talking to a lot of businesses, they don't know, hey man, I talked to somebody yesterday, it's in the same industry as you, that's making 50 grand a month just off of their YouTube channel. They don't know what's possible because they've never experienced it. And they see a lot of stuff online. They're like, well, I don't know if it's true or if it's not. But when you're actually in that space, now I work in sales and marketing, so this is my space. But for you guys on your own sales calls, you have to be able to show people what's wrong and get them to acknowledge it. They have to feel the pain in the moment. They can't feel the pain 3 months ago. You're not going to sell them now. They have to feel the pain in the moment. People don't get help unless they think they need help. And in order to need help, they have to acknowledge that there's a problem. So I'll look at it, I'll say, man, that's not good. And I just sit in silence. That's not good, man. Whew. I might even do some silly stuff like that where I just accentuate how bad it is. And the trick to this, by the way, is to just be real. If you would never talk that way, don't do that. If it sounds weird because that's not how you would talk, do it the way that you would do it. But you want to accentuate it. So we've got 3 things off our list of 10 already. We've got the current situation, we've got the goal. We started really uncovering a lot of problems. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask them, what they're spending their time on. Like on a day-to-day basis, how are you guys running the business? Like as the owner, what are you kind of spending your day on? Like just walk me through what a normal day looks like for you. Now the reason you want to ask this question is this question helps you to remove the time objection before it comes up at the end of the pitch. By the way, another thing that I typically ask at the beginning of the call is I'll say, did you want to bring your business partner or your husband or wife or whoever is running the company with you on the call? I assume they have one. If they say, oh, I don't have one, great. They can't say it at the end of the call, I got to talk to my business partner. If they have one, I get them on the call. If they can't join the call, I reschedule the call. I actually did an entire video on this. I'll put the link for that video in the description of this video on how to remove every objection before the end of the call. That way, when you get to the end, all you have left to do is negotiate on either pricing or payment terms or whatever it is that they want to do. Or maybe they want to do a better package or a smaller package. So I literally know by this point in the call, and this is, by the way, only about 7 minutes into the call, I know what's going on, who's involved, what's wrong, where they're trying to go. I know how they're spending their time. And then I go into the financials. Now, I found by using a stopwatch, I bought a stopwatch off of Amazon, and I literally started timing myself on calls. I found the minimum amount of time for an inbound lead, meaning the lead came in and I dialed it, not for a cold call, but an inbound lead. The minimum amount of time I had to talk to somebody before they would be willing to answer my questions around their finances was 8 minutes. So I built my sales process that when I get to around the 8-minute mark, now if they're real chatty, it might be 9 or 10 minutes, I can start asking financial questions and they don't get weird. They're not like, oh, why are you asking that? Blah, 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 blah. They've already told me so much by that point. It just makes sense. It's logical that I would ask about the revenue. So that's my next three points. What's gross revenue? What is net, or what do your profit margins look like? And the last one is, what do you guys keep like liquid, like cash in the business bank account to be able to scale this thing? What do you guys keep cash on hand? And you want to say it specifically like that. And here's the reason why. A lot of people ask this question and it doesn't work. They say, how much do you guys have that you're willing to invest into marketing? All of it. Okay, well, how much is that? Oh, if it works, $1 million. That's not helpful for me as a salesperson at all. What the hell am I going to do with that? Do you have $1 million? Well, no, we've only got 10 grand. Why are you saying $1 million? Don't be stupid, dude. So it just completely erases the silliness of people's answers around what they're willing to spend. Instead, I just ask, what do you guys have cash, liquid, like in the business bank account? And I say in the business bank account because I want to decouple them from the money. When you ask people, how much money do you have? They're not going to tell you because it's too personal. It's like asking them about their sex life. Not the right way to ask it. How much do you guys keep in the business bank account to scale the business? It's other money for the business out there detached from you. And they'll tell me, oh, well, we keep about 100 grand cash on hand. By the way, what that also does for me is it lets me know what I can pitch them. If they only have 100 grand, I'm not going to pitch them on spending 100 grand because then they have zero. And 99.9999999% of people are never going to put all of their money into one investment. They're typically only going to spend about 10%. Good way of thinking about this is 80% of people will spend 10% of their cash on hand. So 100 grand would be, they'll spend 10,000. About 4% are going to be willing to spend 20%, which is 20,000. And the remaining 6% at best will spend 5%, which is 5,000. So I now know, okay, I know what their situation is. I know where they're trying to go. I know what's going on. I have all this information, and I also know what they can afford. So before I even get into pitching them, I already know I'm going to ask them to spend $10,000. Now, if they're a crazy high risk taker and they're like action oriented, they're just like, oh yeah, man, we went skydiving last weekend. We're going parasailing next weekend. We're doing this. Like people saying stuff like that, then I'm like, okay, this guy's a high risk taker. He might do 15 to 20%. So I'll pitch him at 20. If I have to, I can drop down to doing 10 and do a two pay of $10,000. So in my head, while I'm listening and taking notes, I'm running the numbers to figure out what the right amount is to pitch. One of the reasons a lot of salespeople struggle to close is they're asking people to spend either too much or too little money. It doesn't fit the risk profile of the person they're speaking to. And so they have to do a lot of mental gymnastics and conversational gymnastics to try to get the close. But I already know, I'm like, he's got 100 grand. Seems like a normal everyday kind of business owner. He'd probably spend 10. That's what I'll pitch him on. I might even pitch a little higher and then give him a deal. Price drop a little bit. Hey, normally this is $13,000. I think, you're the kind of person that is really going to take action. And this is really geared towards businesses like yours that have the problems you guys have. If you're willing to just get this going today, we'll just do it for 10. Like, who cares? Let's just get it going, because the reality is it's going to take a couple of days for us to get everything up and running. Like, I don't want this to drag out. And by the way, it saves me time. It saves you time. It's not annoying. I'm not going to text you 50 times and email you and call you and all this other stuff. Are you cool with just taking care of the 10 grand? So at the 12-minute mark, okay, 8 minutes, I start asking about financials. At the 12-minute mark, we transition from the discovery phase of the call into the education or challenging phase. Now, by this point, I have so much information and I've been attentively listening to what it is they're saying and how they're saying it and what words they're using. I can now start to use some of their own language against them in a way that gets them feeling like I have to do more, I have to get better, I have to be willing to get help because I need help, because if I already knew everything, I'd be 100 millionaire instead of a millionaire, making $1 million a year in my business. And so the education / like challenging phase of the call only really lasts for about 6 minutes. And the key to doing this right is, number one, you need to use the words and phrases they've already used. So if they keep saying, man, we really want to scale, I'm going to say that a few times. If they said, we've tried so many things and nothing's really worked, I'm gonna say that. So in my space where I'm selling, coaching on sales and marketing for coaching businesses, I'm gonna tell people, I'm gonna say, hey, look, man, I've worked in this space for the last 10 years, and all the companies I've worked with, like, they've all tried everything. They're all trying to scale. Everybody wants to scale, and they've tried this and they've tried this. And the problem is, what they do is they try to find the least expensive option. And the problem is you can't get the quality you need to scale a business by going with the cheapest option. If it's cheap, it's going to cost you time or stress. If it's expensive, you can save your time and your stress because you're going to have the right people and they're going to have a process that they can easily implement quickly into your business. And the reality is none of us have all the answers, but when it comes to this specific thing, I've done this every single day for 10 years, and I can tell you it's so simple once you know it. Once you're doing it, it's like riding a bike. I haven't ridden a bike in 15 years. I promise you, if you put me on a bike today, I could ride it up and down the street as if nothing had changed. It's that simple. But the reality is there's so much information out there. You have so many people saying this, saying this, saying this, saying this. And the reality is they make money from telling you guys to do that. I don't make any money unless I get you results. So the reality is, like, I have an interest in making sure what I'm doing is right, because I don't get to pay my bills if I don't get you where you're trying to go. And you said you want to do 2 million in revenue a year. What we need to do, and then I start to break down the actual pitch. I start to go into, in order to solve your problem, we need to retool your sales team's script. I already know. If you go listen to some of your sales team's calls, some of your guys aren't asking for the sale at all. Most of them are only asking once, and there might be a handful that ask twice. The reality is you need a sales script that has 7 different closes in it. And it has to be organized in a way that makes sense. The first close should not be hyper aggressive, right? Like, you don't just go in for the kill and then you have to soften up on the back end. The first close has to be kind of chill. It has to be laid back. People have to feel like, well, it's just a no-brainer decision. Of course I'd take that decision. But the salesperson has to understand how to do that. So I might say, we're going to retool the script, number 1. Number 2, we need a system where we're getting flags when sales calls aren't going right. So we're going to help you to set up these automations. And number 3, what we're going to do on the back end is we're going to train your salespeople once a week. So every week they've got some accountability from somebody that isn't like the boss. So they feel like, man, the boss is paying this guy to come in here and help us because he wants us to make as much money as possible. So we're going to pay more attention. It's like, you know, when you're growing up, you might have a friend that says something and you listen to them, but 2 weeks before that, your parents had told you the same thing. It's the same situation. You know, sales guys are like little kids anyways, right? Haha, there's a little bit of a joke there. So when I get to the pitch, I have a simple, easy, fun solution where the business owner, all they have to do is just pay the money. Just pay the 10 grand. It's easy. Pay 10 grand. I'll take care of everything. You'll make more money. Everybody will be happy. It'll be fun. It'll be cool. So I've gone through the discovery. I've hit all of my 10 bullet points that I know I need to get in order to be able to close the deal. I went through like actually educating the person, explaining to them why they're in this situation, how all kinds of other people have been in the same situation, and how that has actually been the result of this thing and not the thing that they thought it was. And then I've gone into my pitch. My pitch is always exactly the same. It's 3 points. Always. People remember things if you put them in chunks of 3. So I always make it a point to just use 3. And then when I ask for the sale, I literally just say, hey, look, so for us to do this, normally it's $13,000. If you're open to just going ahead and getting started today, and we don't have to do 20 phone calls, 50 emails, 500 text messages, 30 testimonials, this thing, like if we don't have to do all this extra work, we'll just do it for 10. How does that sound? And guess what I do again? I mute myself. And here's the thing. This is another point. If you guys are kind of listening to this maybe in the background while you're doing other things, this is another one of those like critical points. You have to, as a salesperson or your team of salespeople, they have to learn how to shut the hell up when they ask for the money. Because a lot of times what'll happen is you ask for the money. If you mute yourself and you don't say anything, there's an awkward pause. And the person on the other side of the phone is as uncomfortable as the salesperson is, sometimes more. And what happens is if they don't say yes on the first close, which most people won't, they start to blabber again. Well, you know, it sounds great. Like, you know, we'd love to do that. It's just, you know, spending 10 grand, it's a huge commitment. Like, so the salesperson, or you, if you're the salesperson, you start to get an idea, okay, so this person seems like they want to do it, but mentally they're holding themselves back. They're scared, which is normal. When people spend money, they get scared. So if your thought process during the close is, my job here is to be an assistant buyer. My job here is to help this person to make the right decision because I have a product or a service that if they just give me a chance, I can help them out. If that's your mindset, asking for the close 7 times is easy. It's so easy. How does that sound? And they say, well, sounds good, but this or this. And you just say, oh, got it. So like if we did this and then we did this, like would that work? Now notice, it's another, you guys could call this a trial close. Well, if we did this and this, would that work? And notice my tonality. If you guys study Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street guy, he's actually got a term for this. He calls it the reasonable man tonality. Would that work? It's reasonable. It's just a reasonable suggestion. Hey, that makes sense to me. So a lot of the reason why I've gotten really good at this is because that tonality is very natural to me. That's how I normally talk. So I didn't have to train myself on this, but a lot of people do. So I say, well, would that work? And they say, well, yeah, but, and then they typically give you the real thing holding them back. And this is why so many companies are selling below their potential, because they ask for the close, the person gives a reasonable objection, which is not reasonable at all. They have a problem and you can solve it, and they're giving some kind of excuse. And then you don't ask again, and so you never find the real problem. Just like during discovery, when you asked what the big obstacle was, and they tell you the symptom, you have to dig deeper. So when I asked that second time, well, if we did this and we did this, would that work? We could still do that for 10 grand. That's not a big deal. Would that work? And again, I mute myself. And they're like, well, yeah, but, and then they tell me the real thing. Well, I just did payroll and, money's tighter right now because we just paid everybody and we've got this other thing coming up and blah, blah, blah. They start telling me stuff, and then I can work through that with them and do another close. Well, got it. Well, look, man, like, I don't want to be like a pressure sales guy, like one of these guys that's hammering you and all this stuff. I'm not worried about the money. And I don't think you should be either. If we do these things, trust me when I tell you, you're going to get the results you're looking for. Notice, I'm reassuring him. I'm just telling him, look, if you do this stuff, it's a no-brainer. If you do this, it's going to work. It's like tying your shoes. If you tie a bow and you bow it up and all this stuff, you got tied shoes. It's that easy. If we do this, you're not going to have this issue in 12 months anyways. So why don't we do this? Like, I trust you. You seem like you're a really sharp guy. I'd like to work with you. Can you just take care of the first like 5K and we'll take care of the other 5K in a month? Will that make it a little bit easier? Third time I asked for the sale. Notice, it's still reasonable man tonality over and over and over. Will that make it a little easier? Well, yeah, that would definitely help, but some other thing. Now, at this point in the close, I'm 3 asks deep. I'm halfway to my 7 where most people are going to close at. I'm halfway there. I start to change the way I'm asking. And instead of asking, I start to hype them up a little bit and I start to push them a little bit. And here's something you have to understand. If you want to be a great coach or if you want to be a great salesperson, it applies to both of these roles. People almost never change until it's too damn bad to deal with anymore, and then they'll spend any amount of money to fix it. It's like in Alcoholics Anonymous, they say you have to hit rock bottom to get clean. That's all nonsense. You can take people mentally to rock bottom without them ever having to hit it, but you have to know what is going wrong in their mind. People typically know what they need to do, and they don't do it because they're scared of change and they're scared that they might fail. And the reality is, especially if you're selling business to businesses, business owners have to invite failure into their lives every single day if they want to be successful. There's no way around it. You're going to have to try a lot of stuff that doesn't work. There's a phrase, you throw as much stuff at the wall and whatever sticks. Like, that's what they're going to have to do. So as a salesperson, and on the back end in the fulfillment process as a coach, you have to be able to take people to a place they don't want to go to and magnify the pain as much as you possibly can so that they take action instead of waiting for the real disaster to strike. So once I've already asked 3 times, my brain clicks into a different gear. I immediately shift into, I've got to coach this person. They're giving me way too many excuses. So I might be a little bit more aggressive. I say, well, we don't need the full 10 grand right now. Why don't we just do 5 and we'll do the other 5 in a month? Would that make it a little bit easier? And if I get more excuses at that point, my brain just clicks into high gear and I start changing the way I talk to people and pushing on them. And keep in mind, you guys, if you've got a good product or service and you can actually help people and you're too scared to push them to make the purchase, you're basically a bad person. It's like if you've got a friend who has a massive drug problem, you should not be like, oh, it's okay, dude, don't worry, one day you'll hit rock bottom. They might die. By the way, you know how many businesses have failed and the founder kills themselves because their whole life is ruined? So you have to take them to that place mentally. So if after that third ask, they're still hemming and hawing and they're saying all this stuff, I immediately shift into, I say, hey, look, can I be honest with you? And they say yes, of course. I say, I've been doing this for a really long time. I've been doing this for 10 years. And I've been really fortunate, and this is a true thing that I'm saying to people. I've been really fortunate. I've worked with companies and in companies doing hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. The biggest company I worked for, we were doing $900 million in revenue during COVID. The biggest mistake I see business owners making every single day is they're so attached to the little bit of money that they're getting that they never spend any of it to get the big damn pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And if you look at every successful business, if you look at Microsoft, if you look at Amazon, if you look at Apple, if you look at all of these companies that everybody on the whole damn planet knows, and you really study the most successful companies, they went all in. They didn't count the dollars because they were counting what really mattered, which was their time and their health. They didn't want to be stressed out about their bills all the time. They were like, we just have to solve the problem when it comes up right here, right now. Now, I'm going to pause really quick. Notice what I'm saying. Right here, right now. This is kind of like NLP type stuff, but I'm trying to plant in their own mind how they should behave. I'm saying right here, right now. I know I'm talking about somebody else, but I'm talking about people that they probably look up to and admire for their success. Like Jeff Bezos, the crazy thing is when he started Amazon, they were in a garage. They couldn't afford desks, so they had some doors that they just turned into desks, and they were working like 20 hours a day. And as soon as they got capital, they put it into the business. They got capital and put it into the business, back and back and back, and they kept reinvesting. And that's why Amazon's one of the biggest companies in the whole planet right now. And so what you got to understand is if you're scared to spend $10,000 right now, you have the wrong problem. The goal isn't 2 million. It might be 2 million in the next 12 months. The goal is how far can we take this thing? I mean, in your industry, there's people in your business doing the same thing as you that are doing 50 million a year, 100 million a year. So I know the immediate thing right now. Now notice, again, I'm hitting on right now, right now. The immediate thing right now is we got to get this marketing department and your sales team turned around. And we need to do that fast because unfortunately, marketing takes a little bit of time. If you got the right person in place, it'll still take a month to get the money back to reinvest into the next month and the next and the next. But the reality is, if you get the right people in and you have the right processes, it will be 10 times faster than having to hire and fire, try this thing. Like all the smartest people in the world, all they do is literally just copy who was more successful than them beforehand. And that's all I'm recommending you do today. So why don't we just get the 5 grand taken care of? Tomorrow we're going to do your onboarding call. Can you be on a call tomorrow at noon? Now notice what I do. Pressure, 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 release valve. Can you be on a call tomorrow at noon? Does that work for you? And I get them to look at their calendar. I want them to start envisioning themselves in the process. I want them to start thinking about, okay, well, I don't know, let me check really quick. I'm also breaking the frame. Instead of continuing hammering on them, I'm breaking the frame to give them a little bit of release. And if they say, well, actually, I can't do noon, I could do 1. Okay, let me do this. Who else do you need me to put on this calendar invite? I'm going to send this over right now. I've got your email. Did you need to bring your marketing people, or are you going to use our marketing people? Like, how do you want to do this? Who should I bring onto the call? I haven't even taken the money yet. I don't even have the money yet. I'm planning it as if it's already taken care of, that the guy's paying. And I start putting it on there. I'm like sending him the calendar invite before I've even taken the money. I say, okay, let's just get the $5,000 taken care of. What card do you want to use? And I hardcore assume that he's going to pay right then and there. Now, fourth ask, maybe it's a yes now. He might actually, by the way, this is the cool thing about when you make that shift from like just being like, is that cool? Does that work? Blah, blah, blah. When you make the shift to like, hey man, look, this is your life we're talking about. This is not a game. When you make it serious and then you use an assumptive close, it's significantly more effective. And what'll happen is when you get to that like fourth ask, that's when people stop giving you objections or making excuses and they start asking questions. If they're asking questions when you're asking them to pay, it's a signal to your brain that this person's going to buy. They just want to know a couple of things before they can say yes. So be prepared. Part of the reason why sales, it's so important to have volume is you can't prepare if you don't know what questions are going to come up. So John on the other line might say, hey, yeah, but like, I don't really understand like this. And so then I just loop back and re-explain it and then ask for the sale again. So that's literally, by the way, just so you guys are totally clear, that's my exact sales process. I was traveling all over the place. I was in Beverly Hills. I was in Mexico for almost 7 months. I was in Norway, Denmark, Puerto Rico. I mean, I was in 5, maybe 6 different places last year. I was traveling all over the place, working part-time. I did $2.5 million in sales. And that's the exact process I followed. And it starts very open-ended at the beginning. I'm trying to get them to talk a lot. By the way, them talking a lot loosens them up, makes it feel less like a sales call, makes it feel more like a consultation kind of. And then I start narrowing it down. When I get to that 8-minute mark, I'm like, okay, time to ask about the money. When I get to that 12-minute mark, I know it's time to start challenging their beliefs. It's time to start educating them on why they're in the situation they are, and start positioning my pitch, which happens around the 18-minute mark, of what it takes to get out of that and what kind of transformation they're going to go through and how their life is going to change and get better as a result. So if this helped you guys, leave a comment below. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. I love you guys. I hope you guys all have an amazing year and tons of success with this. And if you guys have any questions, now's the time to do it. Post a comment below, ask your question. I answer these myself. I don't have my assistant do it. She wouldn't be able to help you guys anyway. She doesn't know anything about sales. And I'll see you guys on the next video.